collision of worlds. The rain pounded against the windows of the ambulance bay as Naomi Fuller peeled off her gloves with a heavy sigh. 14 hours into what should have been a 12-hour shift, her eyes burned from fatigue. 3 back-to-back cardiac emergencies had kept her team running without breaks, and the constant downpour had turned roads into hazardous streams of reflective black. "You look dead on your feet," said Joaquin, her partner dropping a sandwich in front of her. "Eat something before you collapse." Naomi managed a weak smile. "Thanks, but I can't stay. I promised Mrs. Henley I'd check her medication before bedtime." "The retired teacher from Cedar Street?" "Naomi, that's not your job. You're off the clock," she shrugged, gathering her things. "She doesn't have anyone else. Besides, I need the extra cash." What she didn't say was how the student loan statements had arrived that morning, the red final notice stamp burning a hole in her wallet. Her paramedic salary barely covered rent and groceries, let alone the mountain of debt from medical school, a dream abandoned when her mother's cancer diagnosis had required Naomi to start earning immediately. The rain had intensified when she reached the parking lot. Fumbling with her umbrella, Naomi sprinted toward her ancient Honda, already mentally calculating the fastest route to Mrs. Henley's through the flooded streets. Her phone buzzed with a text from her roommate. "Rent due tomorrow." "You got your half?" Distracted, she didn't notice the sleek black Audi pulling out of the hospital's VIP parking space until her body slammed against its passenger door with a sickening thud. Her umbrella went flying. Her bag spilled across the wet pavement and pain shot through her hip. "Are you blind?" The voice was deep, controlled, but rimmed with ice. The driver's door opened and a tall figure emerged, impeccably dressed despite the downpour, his tailored suit somehow repelling water like expensive armor. "I'm so sorry," Naomi gasped, scrambling to collect her scattered belongings from a puddle. "I wasn't looking." Clearly, the man surveyed the small dent in his car door with narrowed eyes. Under the parking lot lights, his features were sharp, high cheekbones, a jawline that could cut glass, and eyes so dark they seemed to absorb rather than reflect light. Naomi recognized him instantly. Dominic Winters, CEO of Pinnacle Hospitality Group, which owned half the luxury hotels in the city, including the one being built where her childhood neighborhood once stood. His face regularly appeared in business magazines, always with the same steely expression he wore now. "I'll pay for the damage," she said, wincing as she stood, her uniform now soaked through. "Just send me the estimate." She fumbled in her wallet for a business card, knowing full well that fixing even a scratch on his car would probably cost a month of her salary. Dominic's eyebrow arched as he took in her paramedic uniform. "Your medical staff?" His tone suggested mild surprise, as if he'd assumed she was some reckless pedestrian. "Paramedic. Look, I really am sorry about your car, but I have to go. I'm already late for a patient." Naomi handed him her card, noticing how the rain didn't dare touch his perfectly styled dark hair. Something flashed in his eyes, curiosity, perhaps, or simply disbelief at her directness. Most people cowered around Dominic Winters. His reputation for cold efficiency and uncompromising standards had earned him the nickname the Frost King in business circles. "You're injured," he stated flatly, nodding toward her hip. "I'm fine. Just a bruise." Naomi met his gaze, refusing to be intimidated despite her heart hammering in her chest. Dominic studied her for a moment longer than necessary, then reached into his jacket and withdrew a sleek business card of his own. "Have the hospital bill me for your medical examination?" "That won't be necessary. But your car will be handled." He cut her off with practiced efficiency. "Get yourself checked, Ms. Fuller." "Naomi Fuller, Ms. Fuller." He nodded once, then slid back into his Audi with fluid grace. As the expensive car pulled away, Naomi stood drenched in the parking lot, clutching his card and wondering what kind of person offered to pay for someone else's medical care, but couldn't spare a simple smile. She pocketed the card, knowing she'd never use it, and limped toward her car, unaware that this brief collision would soon ripple through both their carefully structured worlds. Beneath the surface, 2 weeks after the parking lot incident, Naomi stood before an imposing brownstone in the city's most exclusive neighborhood. She double-checked the address on her phone against the brass numbers beside the door, convinced there must be a mistake. "This can't be right," she muttered, shifting the weight of her medical bag. The agency had called that morning with an emergency home care assignment, double her usual rate for a 3-month commitment. After the transmission in her Honda finally gave out last week, she couldn't afford to say no. Taking a deep breath, she pressed the doorbell. Classical music drifted faintly from somewhere inside. After a moment, the heavy door swung open to reveal an elegant older woman with silver-streaked black hair. "You must be the new nurse," the woman said, her accent lightly Portuguese. "I'm Teresa, the housekeeper. Please come in." The interior was even more impressive. Soaring ceilings, art that looked museum-worthy, and furniture that probably cost more than Naomi's annual salary. Teresa led her through a series of rooms, explaining the household routines in a hushed tone. Mrs. Winters prefers her medications precisely at 8 and 2. She tires easily but dislikes being told to rest. The doctor visits on Thursdays. "Any questions so far?" Naomi nearly stumbled. "Did you say Winters? As in, Dominic Winters is Mrs. Eleanor Winters' grandson, yes. He owns the house, though he rarely stays here. His apartment is downtown, closer to headquarters." Naomi's stomach tightened. Of all the wealthy families in the city, she had to end up working for his. She considered turning around right then, but the memory of her mechanic's estimate kept her feet moving forward. Teresa opened the door to a sunlit room where an elderly woman sat by the window, a book open in her lap. Despite her obvious frailty, Eleanor Winters carried herself with unmistakable dignity, the same regal bearing Naomi had glimpsed in her grandson. "Mrs. Winters, your new home health aide has arrived." Eleanor looked up, intelligent eyes assessing Naomi from behind stylish glasses. "About time. The last one couldn't tell an ACE inhibitor from aspirin." She gestured to a chair. "Sit. Tell me about your qualifications while Teresa makes tea." For the next hour, Naomi found herself under gentle but thorough interrogation. Eleanor Winters had been a cardiothoracic surgeon before a stroke 3 months ago had left her with partial paralysis on her left side. Her mind, however, remained razor-sharp. "Paramedic training is excellent practical experience," Eleanor concluded. "Better than those nursing students who've never seen a real crisis. When can you start?" "I'm scheduled to begin today, but..." "Perfect. Teresa will show you your room." "My room?" "The position is live in 5 days a week." "Didn't the agency explain?" "I need monitoring overnight. My grandson insists." Before Naomi could respond, the distinctive sound of the front door opening echoed through the house, followed by brisk footsteps. Eleanor's face brightened subtly. "Speak of the devil. Dominic visits every Tuesday afternoon." Naomi frantically considered her options for escape, but it was too late. Dominic Winters appeared in the doorway, immaculate in a charcoal suit. His eyes widened almost imperceptibly when they landed on her. "Grandmother, I wasn't aware you had company." "Not company. This is Naomi Fuller, my new medical aide." Eleanor smiled. "Naomi, my grandson Dominic." Recognition flashed in his dark eyes, but his expression remained neutral. "Ms. Fuller and I have met briefly." "Really? How unusual." Naomi cleared her throat. "Mr. Winters' car and I had a minor disagreement in the hospital parking lot." "I see." Eleanor's eyes twinkled with unexpected humor. "And who won this disagreement?" "The car, definitely," Naomi admitted. To her surprise, the corner of Dominic's mouth twitched almost imperceptibly. The damage was minimal. An uncomfortable silence fell before Eleanor declared, "Dominic, show Naomi to the library while I rest. I'm sure you two have things to discuss." Once alone in the book-lined library, Dominic turned to her. "This is unexpected. Believe me, I had no idea whose house I was coming to." Naomi stood her ground. "If this is a problem, I can ask the agency to send someone else. Is that what you want?" The question caught her off guard. "What I want is irrelevant. I need this job, but I also need to know there won't be awkwardness about our previous encounter." He studied her with that same inscrutable expression. "My grandmother's care is my priority. Her previous nurses have been either incompetent or unbearably obsequious. She seems to approve of you, which is rare enough to merit consideration. So you're okay with me staying? Your qualifications are appropriate. Your directness might actually suit my grandmother." He moved to a nearby desk, retrieving a folder. "These are her medical records. Study them tonight. The security codes and household protocols are also included." As he handed her the folder, their fingers brushed briefly. Naomi was startled by the warmth of his hand. Somehow she'd expected someone called the Frost King to be cold to the touch. "One more thing," Dominic said, his voice lowering. My grandmother believes I live primarily downtown because of work convenience. She doesn't know it's because I can't bear to watch her struggle in the home she once commanded so effortlessly. Don't correct this impression. The unexpected vulnerability in this admission left Naomi momentarily speechless. Before she could respond, he straightened, mask firmly back in place. Teresa will show you the rest of the house. I have meetings this afternoon, but I'll return for dinner at 7. My grandmother enjoys company while she eats. With that, he was gone, leaving Naomi to wonder about the complex man beneath the icy exterior and how she would manage living under the same roof as someone who made her pulse quicken in a way that had nothing to do with fear. Walls of glass. 3 weeks into her new position, Naomi had settled into a rhythm at the Winters residence. Eleanor proved to be a demanding but fascinating patient. Her stories of pioneering surgical techniques in a male-dominated field during the 1970s often kept Naomi enthralled during their therapy sessions. The elegant brownstone, initially intimidating, had become familiar territory. What remained unpredictable were the evenings when Dominic joined them for dinner. Tonight, as Naomi helped Eleanor into her seat at the dining table, she felt the now familiar tension that accompanied his arrival. He entered precisely at 7, as always, today in a navy suit that emphasized the breadth of his shoulders. "Grandmother," he greeted, placing a kiss on Eleanor's cheek before nodding to Naomi. "Ms. Fuller." "Mr. Winters," she responded, taking her seat. Over the weeks they had maintained this formal address despite Eleanor's eye-rolling. "For heaven's sake," the older woman sighed as Teresa served the first course. 3 weeks of Mr. Winters and Ms. Fuller. You're not diplomats negotiating a treaty." Dominic raised an eyebrow. "Professional boundaries are appropriate." "Professional boundaries," Eleanor muttered. "Is that what they call it these days?" Naomi nearly choked on her water while Dominic remained impassive, though a faint color touched his cheekbones. "How was your appointment with Dr. Ramirez today?" he asked, smoothly changing the subject. As Eleanor detailed her progress, Naomi observed Dominic, the way he listened intently, asking precise questions about medication adjustments and therapy milestones. His reputation as cold-hearted seemed at odds with this attentive grandson, who insisted on handling his grandmother's care personally, despite running a global hospitality empire. "Naomi has been exceptional," Eleanor said, drawing her attention back to the conversation. "She's developed a modified exercise routine that's already improved my grip strength." Dominic's dark eyes met Naomi's. "That's commendable." "It's my job," she replied, uncomfortable with praise from him. "Modesty," Eleanor declared, "is overrated." "Dominic, pour the wine. We're celebrating my progress." Later, after helping Eleanor to bed, Naomi found herself unable to sleep. The house creaked softly around her as she made her way downstairs for tea, surprised to find light spilling from the library door. Dominic sat behind the massive desk, his tie loosened, surrounded by documents and a glowing laptop screen. He looked up at her footsteps. "Ms. Fuller, is everything all right?" "Is my grandmother—" "She's fine," Naomi assured him quickly, sleeping soundly. "I just came down for tea." He nodded, returning to his work. She should have continued to the kitchen, but something made her pause. "Do you ever sleep?" she asked. "Every night you're here, you're working until dawn." His pen stopped moving. "Sleep is inefficient." "Sleep is necessary," she countered, stepping fully into the room, "especially for cognitive function and decision-making." "Medical fact." The hint of a smile touched his lips. "Are you prescribing rest, Ms. Fuller?" "Someone should." "You look exhausted." For a moment, surprise flickered across his features, as if no one had expressed concern for his well-being in a very long time. "I have a hotel opening in Singapore next week," he said finally. "The time difference makes late nights unavoidable." Naomi approached the desk, noticing architectural drawings spread among financial reports. "Is this the new hotel?" "Yes, Pinnacle Singapore." He hesitated, then turned one of the renderings toward her. "Our first carbon-neutral property." Something in his voice, a subtle note of pride, made her look more closely. "It's beautiful, different from your usual style." "You're familiar with Pinnacle Properties?" Naomi's expression cooled slightly. "Your company bought the entire block where I grew up in Riverside. Demolished 30 homes to build Pinnacle Lakeview." His face remained impassive, but his eyes sharpened. Riverside was condemned by the city after the floods. The buildings were structurally unsound. Some were. Others just happened to be in the way of prime waterfront real estate. You think I'm the villain in this story? It wasn't a question. I think business. Decisions have human consequences that spreadsheets don't capture. Naomi met his gaze directly. Families who'd lived there for generations were scattered across the city. My mother had to move to a third-floor walk-up after her cancer diagnosis because it was all we could afford. Silence stretched between them, taut with unspoken accusations. Finally, Dominic closed his laptop. The Singapore property includes affordable housing units and a medical clinic offering free care to local residents. He spoke without defensiveness, simply stating facts. Every Pinnacle development now includes community investment components. Since Riverside, Naomi's anger faltered. Since Riverside? He stood, moving to the window. I visited the site after construction began. Saw a woman my grandmother's age struggling to carry boxes from her home of 50 years. It affected me. The admission seemed to cost him something. Naomi realized she was seeing a glimpse of the man behind the corporate mask. Someone capable of reflection, perhaps even regret. Why are you telling me this? Dominic turned, his expression unusually open. Because you see people, not balance sheets. It's a perspective I've come to value. The room suddenly felt too warm, too intimate. Naomi took a step back. I should go. Early therapy session tomorrow. He nodded, that mask of cool professionalism sliding back into place. Good night, Miss Fuller. Good night. She paused at the door. And Mr. Winters? Try to get some sleep. Doctor's orders. As she climbed the stairs, Naomi felt unsettled, not by their disagreement, but by the realization that the wall between them had begun to crack, revealing glimpses of a complexity she hadn't expected and wasn't sure she was prepared to face. Because behind that wall of glass he maintained so carefully, she'd glimpsed something that looked remarkably like loneliness, a feeling she understood all too well. The breaking point. Late October rain lashed against the windows as Naomi finished arranging Eleanor's medications for the evening. 2 months into her position, she'd grown accustomed to the mansion's rhythms. The way light moved through its rooms throughout the day, the specific creak of the third stair from the top, Teresa's humming as she prepared dinner. What she hadn't grown accustomed to was her complicated reaction whenever Dominic entered a room. Since their late-night conversation in the library, something had shifted between them. The formal Mr. Winters had gradually softened to Dominic at Eleanor's insistence. Their dinners now often extended into discussions that ranged from healthcare policy to literature, revealing an unexpectedly wide-ranging intellect behind his business-like exterior. Naomi, dear, Eleanor called from her reading chair. Has Dominic mentioned what time he'll arrive tonight? The board meeting should have ended hours ago. Naomi checked her watch, 8:30 p.m. Dominic was never late, especially not for his grandmother's birthday dinner. No, but I'm sure he'll be here soon. Traffic might be bad in this weather. Eleanor didn't look convinced. Something's wrong. He always calls if he's delayed. Always. Before Naomi could respond, her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Ms. Fuller, this is Vivian Park, Mr. Winters' assistant. He asked me to inform Mrs. Winters that he won't make dinner tonight. Business emergency. Naomi frowned at the impersonal message. His assistant says he can't make it. Business emergency. On my birthday? Eleanor's voice held more worry than disappointment. That's not like him at all. He would have told me himself. Naomi made a quick decision. I'll have Teresa sit with you. I'm going to check on him. You don't even know where he is. I'll figure it out. 30 minutes later, Naomi stood in the lobby of Pinnacle headquarters, her rain-soaked jacket dripping onto the marble floor. The security guard eyed her suspiciously. I'm sorry, ma'am, but the offices are closed. Mr. Winters left hours ago after the board meeting. Do you know where he went? The guard's expression softened slightly. Try the observatory. 42nd floor. It's where he goes to think. The observatory turned out to be a glass-enclosed rooftop garden atop the Pinnacle building. When the elevator doors opened, Naomi stepped into a lush, humid space filled with exotic plants and the gentle sound of flowing water. Floor-to-ceiling windows revealed the city lights blurred by rain. She found Dominic at the far end, standing motionless before the panoramic view. His suit jacket was discarded on a nearby bench, his white shirt rumpled. A half-empty bottle of scotch stood on the glass table beside him. Your grandmother is worried about you. Naomi said quietly. He didn't turn. How did you find me? I'm resourceful. And you're predictable. You always seek height when troubled. Your office is on the top floor. Your home gym is on the highest level. You gravitate toward elevation. Now he did turn, surprise evident in his expression. You've been psychoanalyzing me? Observing. It's what paramedics do. She approached cautiously. What happened today? His laugh was harsh, unfamiliar. What happened? I was betrayed by the people I trusted most. Dominic ran a hand through his usually immaculate hair, leaving it disheveled. The board voted to remove me as CEO, effective immediately. Naomi stared in disbelief. How is that possible? You founded the company. I may have founded it, but apparently my focus on sustainability and community investment has been diluting shareholder value. The bitterness in his voice was raw. The board, led by my mentor and including two of my oldest friends, decided I've become too soft. Too concerned with legacy and not enough with quarterly profits. He picked up his glass, the amber liquid catching the light. 15 years of my life. I've missed holidays, relationships, my grandmother's surgery, all for Pinnacle. And they discarded me like yesterday's spreadsheet. Naomi had never seen him like this. The careful control shattered, revealing the depth of pain beneath. She thought of all the times she'd mentally labeled him cold or unfeeling, never considering what that rigid self-discipline might be protecting. I should have seen it coming, he continued, staring into his glass. Richard, my CFO, my friend for 20 years, he's been undermining me for months, setting me up to fail, and I trusted him completely. I'm sorry, Naomi said, because there was nothing else to say. The worst part? His voice dropped to nearly a whisper. They're already dismantling everything I've built. The Singapore Sustainable Development, the community housing initiatives, the employee healthcare program, all deemed unnecessary expenses. When he looked up, the raw vulnerability in his eyes made her breath catch. My entire life I've been taught that showing emotion is weakness. That success requires ruthlessness. I built walls so high I couldn't see over them myself. And for what? In the end, the people I shut out weren't the ones who hurt me. It was the few I let in. The rain intensified, streaming down the glass walls around them. Dominic turned back to the window, his shoulders rigid with tension. Something compelled Naomi forward. She placed a hand gently on his arm. Dominic, look at me. He did, his eyes dark with pain. Caring isn't weakness, she said firmly. Trust isn't a character flaw. What happened today isn't because you became more compassionate. It's because they remained ruthless. His expression didn't change, but he didn't pull away from her touch. Your grandmother is waiting to celebrate her birthday with the grandson she adores, Naomi continued. The one who visits her every day despite running a global company. The one who remembers exactly how she takes her tea and which Chopin nocturne she prefers during physical therapy. Something broke in his expression then. Dominic closed his eyes, and when he opened them, they glistened with unshed tears. I don't know how to face her, he admitted, voice rough. How to tell her I've failed. She gave up everything to raise me after my parents died. Her career, her research. She deserves better than a grandson who couldn't even protect his own legacy. She doesn't love you for your business success, Naomi said softly. She loves you because you're you. The first tear fell then, tracking silently down his cheek. Naomi did what came naturally. She stepped forward and wrapped her arms around him. For a moment he remained perfectly still. Then with a shuddering breath, Dominic's arms encircled her, his face buried in her hair. She felt the tremors that ran through his body as years of carefully controlled emotion finally broke free. They stood like that, wrapped in each other's arms as the storm raged outside, the city lights blurring into watercolor smudges against the darkness. Neither spoke. There was no need for words in this moment of raw honesty between them. When he finally pulled back, his eyes met hers with a new openness. The walls had crumbled, leaving only the truth between them. Thank you, he whispered, the words containing depths Naomi couldn't yet fully comprehend. She reached up to brush a lingering tear from his cheek, her touch lingering. Let's go home. Eleanor's waiting. As they stepped into the elevator together, Naomi realized the significance of what had just happened. She had witnessed something few ever had, the moment when Dominic Winters finally allowed himself to be simply human, with all the messy vulnerability that entailed. And somehow in that breaking, something new had begun between them. something neither had anticipated but both now recognized was impossible to ignore. What remains December arrived with gentle snowfall that transformed the city into a glittering wonderland. The winter's brownstone, always elegant, now radiated warmth with tasteful holiday decorations and the scent of pine from the 12-foot tree in the foyer. In the sunroom, Naomi watched Eleanor complete her final physical therapy session, pride swelling as the older woman stood unassisted for nearly 5 minutes. Remarkable progress, Dr. Ramirez noted, updating his chart. Mrs. Winters, you've exceeded all recovery expectations. Eleanor beamed. I had excellent motivation and exceptional care. The doctor nodded at Naomi. Indeed, though I'm afraid this means our home health aide will soon be unemployed. Nonsense, Eleanor declared. Naomi stays as long as she wishes. As my companion, not my nurse. After the doctor left, Eleanor fixed Naomi with a knowing look. You're quiet today. Just reflecting, Naomi replied, helping Eleanor to her favorite chair. It's been quite a journey these past 3 months. For all of us, Eleanor agreed, her gaze sharpening. Especially Dominic. The mention of his name still caused a flutter in Naomi's chest, one she'd stopped trying to suppress. Since that rain-soaked night at the observatory, Dominic had undergone a transformation that amazed everyone who knew him. Not a dramatic personality change, he remained intense, driven, and formidable, but a subtle shift toward authenticity, as if he'd finally aligned his external self with his true nature. He'd channeled his pain into purpose, founding a new development company focused exclusively on sustainable, community-centered projects. The betrayal that could have hardened him had instead crystallized his commitment to a different kind of success. And then, there was what had grown between them. Cautious at first, neither quite believing the connection that had formed during his moment of vulnerability, dinners that extended into long conversations by the fireplace, weekend walks through snow-covered parks, the first tentative touch of his hand against hers, then later the first kiss, gentle and questioning, deepening into something that had left them both breathless. He'll be home soon, Eleanor said, interrupting Naomi's thoughts. His meeting with the investors ends at 4. Home. The word still surprised her. 3 weeks ago, when her contract officially ended, Dominic had asked her to stay, not as his grandmother's caregiver, but as, what exactly? They hadn't defined it, this delicate new reality between them. Naomi, Eleanor said, her voice gentle but firm. There's something I need to say before he returns. Naomi sat across from her, suddenly nervous. What is it? In my 78 years, I've learned that happiness is rare and precious. Most people search their entire lives without finding it. Eleanor leaned forward, clasping Naomi's hand. My grandson spent 35 years building walls to protect himself from pain. You are the only person who has ever truly seen beyond them. Eleanor, let me finish. Dominic loves you. He may not have said it yet, emotional vocabulary was never his strength, but I know my grandson. I've watched him these past months. The way he looks at you when you're not watching. Eleanor smiled. It's how his grandfather used to look at me. Heat rushed to Naomi's cheeks. I care for him too. Care? Eleanor's eyebrow arched. My dear, you light up like a Christmas tree when he enters a room. Before Naomi could respond, the front door opened. Dominic's voice carried from the foyer as he spoke with Teresa, the deep timbre of it now familiar and essential to her. Eleanor squeezed Naomi's hand once more. Life is short, my dear. Too short for hesitation. Moments later, Dominic appeared in the doorway, snowflakes melting in his dark hair. His serious expression softened when he saw Naomi, a transformation she still marveled at each time. How was the meeting? Eleanor asked. Successful. The foundation's fully funded. He crossed to kiss his grandmother's cheek. The first community health center breaks ground in Riverside next month. Pride bloomed in Naomi's chest. The Winters Foundation for Community Development had been his response to losing Pinnacle, creating something meaningful from the ashes of betrayal. Perfect timing, Eleanor declared. I'm tired. I think I'll rest before dinner. Despite Naomi's offer to help, Eleanor waved her away, leaving her alone with Dominic. An expectant silence filled the room. Walk with me? He asked finally. They bundled up and stepped into the garden, now transformed into a winter sanctuary. String lights twinkled in the bare trees, illuminating the falling snow. They walked in comfortable silence until reaching the small fountain, now frozen into crystalline sculpture. I received a call from the hospital today. Naomi said, breaking the silence. They've offered me a position in the emergency department, full-time with benefits. Dominic stilled beside her. Are you going to take it? I haven't decided. She turned to face him. There's something holding me here. His dark eyes studied her with an intensity that once might have intimidated her, but now only warmed her. Naomi, He paused, uncharacteristically hesitant. What is it? Instead of answering, he reached into his coat pocket and withdrew a small worn leather journal. This was my father's. He wrote in it every day until the accident that took his and my mother's lives. Dominic opened it carefully, revealing pages filled with neat handwriting. I found this entry from the day I was born. He read aloud. Today I held my son for the first time. In that moment I understood that true success has nothing to do with wealth or achievement. It is measured only in love, in the courage to remain open to it despite knowing how deeply it can wound us. Dominic closed the journal, his expression vulnerable in a way that still felt new. For years I thought my father was wrong. That success came from control, from never allowing yourself to need anyone. I built an empire on that belief. He took her gloved hands in his. But I was wrong. Real courage isn't building walls, it's living without them. Even knowing you might get hurt. Snow continued to fall around them, catching in her eyelashes as she waited for him to continue. I love you, Naomi, he said simply. I think I began falling in love with you that first night in the rain, when you insisted on paying for the damage to my car despite barely having enough for rent. Your integrity, your compassion, your refusal to be intimidated by me. You saw me when I couldn't even see myself. Joy surged through her, bright and overwhelming. I love you too. Not the CEO or the businessman, just you. The man who sits with his grandmother for hours listening to stories he's heard a dozen times. Who remembers how every staff member takes their coffee. Who founded a health center in my old neighborhood not for publicity but because it was right. His smile, rare, genuine, and just for her, transformed his face. Does this mean you're not taking the hospital position? I didn't say that, she teased. I'm still a paramedic. I need to help people, it's who I am. I would never ask you to be anything else. His arms encircled her waist. But perhaps we could find a compromise. The Foundation's health centers will need qualified medical directors. Are you offering me a job, Mr. Winters? Naomi raised an eyebrow. That seems like a conflict of interest given our situation. I'm offering you whatever you want, he said softly. A job, a home, a future, my heart. They're all yours already. As the snow swirled around them, Naomi reached up to touch his face. This complex, evolving man who had begun as a stranger in the rain and somehow become essential to her world. What I want is you. The rest we'll figure out together. When he kissed her, surrounded by winter's quiet magic, Naomi knew they had both found something neither had expected that rainy night months ago. Not just love, but the courage to embrace it fully, with all its risks, all its vulnerability, and all its transformative power. Inside the house, Eleanor watched from the window, a satisfied smile on her face. Sometimes healing came in unexpected forms. Sometimes it took a collision to set broken pieces right again. And sometimes, what remained after the breaking was stronger than what had come before, a truth she had always known and her stubborn grandson had finally learned. As Dominic and Naomi walked back toward the house, snow-covered but radiant with shared joy, Eleanor knew that the greatest success of her life had nothing to do with her pioneering medical career. It was this, witnessing love bloom in unexpected places, watching walls crumble to make room for something infinitely more valuable than protection. What remains, after all, is all that truly matters.